Broad Street, brotherly love's the heartbeat. Hungry dogs run faster and we don't eat cheap. No one likes us and we don't care. Cause we from Philly and we ain't never scared. Look up.
But I just gotta know one thing. Are you ready? No! I said, are you ready?
He needs one of those right now. He rubs his palms together. He accepts the snap. He steps forward. He hits it. Very high. Wobbler. Coming up is Netson. He's going to try to take it back. And he doesn't get any place. He fumbles the football. Let's see. He fumbled the football. The Eagles have it.
White shirt.
The Eagles have it. The Eagles have it.
Here we go. Welcome to 4th and JAWN, episode number 82. All right. Okay. Where was that all season? I'll be honest with you, boys and girls. I didn't think the Eagles had a chance in hell of going and beating the Rams in Los Angeles on Sunday Night Football. I would have bet the farm, the house, the car, the children's college fund, all on the fact that the Eagles were going to lose. But once again, our season hopes rest solely on the shoulders of Nick Foles. Nicky Franchise, Nicky Six, Nicky Super Bowls, Nicky MVP, BDN, whatever you want to call him, he once again delivers. This man is an assassin. He is an absolute savage. I don't know what it is about this guy that can make him look so sub-average in preseason, and then the first 2 games of the season look completely average. But when the lights are the brightest and the stage is the biggest and against the best the NFL has to throw at him, Nicky Foles turns into an assassin. Now, I would be lying to the listening audience and lying to myself as a staunch Carson Wentz supporter and a guy who, maybe did a little clowning of Nick Foles fans prior to the news dropping and finding out that Carson Wentz was injured and that Nick Foles was going to start. I would be lying to you if I didn't say that Nick Foles was the major contributing factor to the Eagles beating the Rams. But I would also be lying to you if I said that this wasn't the most impressive and complete team win of the season. I mean, the game plan was efficient and it was simple. Doug Peterson even went back and referenced it about simplifying the game plan. The Eagles spread the ball around. Nicky Foles spread the ball around. He wasn't just eyeballing Zach Ertz. He hit 8 different receivers. Turnovers on defense. Man, they've been hard to come by, but the Eagles got 2 of them. Turnovers on special teams. We're getting special team contributions, picking up that fumble, putting Nick Foles in great opportunity with a short field, a vertical passing game. Alshon Jeffrey, 8 receptions, 160 yards. Dedication to the run. 31 passing plays, 28 running plays. The team defense was outstanding. They were swarming to the ball, and although they missed some tackles, didn't the tackling look a hell of a lot better than it did in previous weeks? Fletcher Cox outplayed Aaron Donald, period. He made it look like Warren Sapp was going against Broderick Bunkley. Avonte Maddox was back, and the offensive line did not give up a sack and only 1 tackle for a loss. Yes, Nick Foles was a major contributor in the fact that the Eagles beat the Rams, but completely, as a whole, the team played amazing. And even though it was a great team victory, the conversation is going to go right back to the quarterbacks. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we are in the middle of an Eagle fan civil war. You got Team Foles, you got Team Wentz. And I think collectively as a whole, the entire fan base wants the same thing. They want to see their Eagles succeed. They want to see them scratch and claw their way into the playoffs. They want to see the Eagles have the opportunity to defend the crown in the playoffs. But they want to go about it in separate ways. And secretly, I feel like the Foles fans, the Foles group over there, have been dogging Carson Wentz and waiting for him to get injured just so they could see their boy back in the spotlight. Meanwhile, I can't help but think that some of the Carson Wentz people over there couldn't wait or were hoping to see Nick Foles fall flat on his face to prove their quarterback was the right one.
I might make another baby tonight in the name of
Carson Wentz, Doug Peterson had a couple interesting quotes about Carson Wentz during Monday's press conference. And there's a lot of hypotheticals out there if the Eagles make the playoffs. And I can't stress this enough. If the Eagles make the playoffs. Eagles fans, enjoy this win against the Rams. Savor it. You deserve it. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Because in the last home game of the regular season, we have a red-hot Houston Texans team coming to town who've won 10 of their last 11. It's a tall order to beat that team. They are a good team. And you've got to win out and hope the Vikings lose one, or you win out and the Dallas Cowboys continue to crap the bed like they did against the Indianapolis Colts. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. There's a lot of work to be done, but we're going to play the hypothetical game, especially when it comes to the quarterbacks. But now I want to turn it over to my man in the ski mask, Mr. Gale Saunders, Eagles Sessions on Twitter. How are you tonight?
It's kind of hard to breathe in here, but we are living in the moment right now. The fans are flying high, but another person who is living in the moment, and the guy who talks about being present, is Nick Foles. Nick Foles stepped up hugely this week against the Rams. I mean, we weren't sure what we were going to see from Nick Foles, what real Nick Foles was going to stand up, and the real one stood up big time. I'm talking about, big time moments, big time players make big time plays in big time moments. Nick Foles, Avonte Maddox, Wendell Smallwood, Russell Douglas, Fletcher Cox. I mean, guys were stepping up all over the field. Like, you look at that play of Avonte Maddox tackling Todd Gurley at the end of the game. It's these small type of plays that get these big type of wins. I mean, I feel like it was like a culmination of the frustration Eagle fans have been wanting to see from this Eagles football team all season long. We're talking about a balanced offensive attack. We saw that. We're talking about defense closing out in the end of the game. We're seeing offense start at the beginning of the game. I mean, in the offensive line, man, I mean, really stepping up big. Guys like Aaron Donald, all-world, Ndamukong Suh, they had their way with the running game. And, having that balance is something we really wanted to see. Running it 30 times to 31 passes. You gotta love that. But, you made mention of the whole, Wentz versus Foles thing. I think that's, to me, just like Nick Foles, Eagle fans live in the moment. Enjoy what we're seeing on the football team. We're playing meaningful football. After last week, losing to the Cowboys and such, we are now playing meaningful football after beating the Rams, and we're on a ride. So, I mean, enjoy the moment. Like, I don't understand this back and forth. If you're an Eagle fan, you rep whoever's under center. I don't care. Like, if you're stuck trying to say I'm right, Nick Foles is what the guy or whatever. Who does that after a big W? Who does that? Like, I mean, it's a root for the team. At the end of the day, it's about this Eagle team sticking together and playing for the next man. Just like you fans should be sticking to your fans and playing and rooting this Eagles team on.
Absolutely, 100% with you. And Nick Foles moved the ball efficiently. He didn't light the world on fire. He didn't Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady or Peyton Manning or Drew Brees' thing. But there was a stark contrast in the way the Eagles' offense was run, played, and moved the ball underneath Wentz for the last 7-8 games, as opposed to Nick Foles in one game against a pretty good Rams defense. Somebody told me it was, and I can't take credit for this, so I don't know whether I saw it on the timeline or heard it on the radio, but they said it was backup goalie syndrome. Now, Gail, I know you don't do that hockey, so I'll explain it to you. The backup goalie, like in hockey, right? The goalie is one of the most highest pressured positions in sports, second only to an NFL quarterback. And as long as you got a goalie that can stand on his head and make all the moves and keep you in games, you always have a chance to win a game. But when there's a backup goalie in, the rest of the team seems to, a lot of the times, elevate their play because they know they have to step up their individual game to help protect that backup goalie and not rely so much on him. And I think that that's what this team did when Foles came into the game and was announced the starter. Foles went 24 for 31, 270 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's not lighting the world on fire. That's where you get in trouble when you're looking at a number sheet. That's where people get in trouble when they're arguing just based off of stats. It was all about the eyeball test with Nick Foles, and you could just see the difference in the offense distributing the ball around. A vertical passing game? What the hell is that? Alshon's catching them deep? It was fantastic to see. So as long as this team can keep elevating their play around Nick Foles, they're going to be tough to beat. Because let me tell you something, I haven't seen that kind of... I put it on the timeline. I haven't seen that kind of confidence in the offense since last postseason.
I mean, think about Carson Wentz and the difference between Carson Wentz and Nick Foles. I think watching Nick Foles not press, I think he was playing within the offense, taking what's there. I mean, I talk about taking that check down, whether it's taking those timed out shots to Alshon Jeffrey. Like that trust factor, utilizing Alshon Jeffrey where he wins. He's a 50-50 ball specialist. Throw it up, give him a chance, and he performed. It was insane. But just watching him work within the offense, I was super proud of Nick Foles, just because he wasn't trying to do too much, but he was taking his shots in a good fashion.
And I feel like this offense was no different than it has been. I mean, Carson Wentz running the RPOs, there was something off there.
Yeah.
Defenses really weren't respecting the run. They weren't biting on what Carson Wentz was trying to give him. But I don't know whether it's Nick Foles' ball fakes are better or it's just the fact that it's a different quarterback in there. But I can't wrap my head around there because it's the same offense that was designed for Nick Foles last year. But for some reason, the RPOs are working. Vertical passing game is working. If I looked at a stat sheet at any point in this season and I saw that Zach Ertz only had 2 receptions, I would have said the Eagles lost the game 10 times out of 10. Eagles won. Nicky Foles on the center. I like it, buddy. Hollywood Hearn, how are you doing tonight in the ski mask?
I'm doing well. I feel a little bit like Kodak Black inside this thing. I'm not going to lie. in the studio. But it took 15 weeks, fellas, but we finally got this Eagles team that I can't do this. Can't do it with the ski mask, guys.
Oh, my God.
Come on.
I'm sorry. Can't handle it. So it took 15 weeks, but we finally got this Eagles team that we were waiting for. One thing I noticed, you were talking about the difference between having Carson on the field and Nick Foles on the field. There was a particular calmness and chill factor that Nick Foles has that I'm not saying Carson doesn't have, but it was very noticeable last night on Sunday how calm he was in the quarterback position, in the pocket, and it was very easy. It's all in the eyes. It's all in the eyes when he comes up to the line of scrimmage. And I particularly saw this in a Rams player, the one who ended up fumbling the punt return that we listened to on the intro. The first time he went out there to receive a punt, I could see in his eyes that he was scared. The way he was doing his prayers, the way he's looking around, he was very fidgety. He wasn't calm, and he was nervous. He ended up ultimately fumbling I'm not saying on that play, but he ended up fumbling later in the game on a very pivotal play in the game. Mm-hmm. And I think that Nick Foles has this sort of chill factor. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's the BDN in him. I'm not sure what it is, but
he's got that energy.
He's got that energy. It's the Lord, okay?
But on the other side of the ball, what was refreshing is the front four getting pressure and Jim Schwartz blitzing. We've been waiting all season long for the front four to create the pressure by themselves. Dude, can we talk about something real quick?
Yeah.
My man, tank top pads. My boy, Michael Bennett, has been balling out all season long. I am willing to make the argument that he's probably the most important defensive pickup we got in the offseason.
Yes.
The offense looks completely revitalized under Nick Foles. And I was saying last week how maybe I stepped over my boundaries in talking about Zach Ertz. But my point My point was that we're talking about Zach Ertz with over 100 receptions right now, and I don't think he has over 1,100 yards. So he's averaging a little bit more than 10 yards a catch. If you look at all the other guys with 100 receptions, they're averaging around 17 yards a catch. What my point with that is the big chunk plays. The difference between Alshon Jeffrey and Zach Ertz out on the field is Zach Ertz is going to catch everything that comes his way, for sure, but they're all 10-yard button routes. Alshon Jeffrey, on the other hand, can go down and break off a 40-yard chunk play, and those are the types of plays that propel us into the end zone. That
yes,
completely catch the defense off guard. When you're only making 10-yard plays, 10 yards a clip, when you add in those 40-yard plays, the defense has to completely switch up the game plan.
That's crazy about the Alshon Jeffrey. Like 4 of his biggest plays this whole season has come in this game with Nick Foles at quarterback.
What was your guys' quick thoughts on the Alshon versus Nelson go up and get it ball?
Oh, I screamed. It was actually the only time during the game that I screamed. I screamed out loud, woke up the kids and everything. Watch out! Like, just something like that.
I could just see them colliding like 2 outfielders on the Phillies and dropping that ball.
They made the play.
They made a play. Yep.
And look, we've been clamoring and complaining and yelling all year for a deep threat. He's been on this team the entire time. It's just a matter of getting the ball to him. And you got roasted, by the way, on YouTube by somebody who said that Zach Ertz take last week was the most ridiculous thing that he's ever heard. But there is some proof in the pudding.
Look at
when you're eyeballing Zach Ertz and you're constantly throwing to Zach Ertz because Zach Ertz is your boy, you're ignoring the entire rest of the offense. And yes, Zach Ertz has been balling out and he's going to set that record, and that's great for him. He's going to set the NFL record for receptions by a tight end. God bless you. But if it's at the detriment of the rest of the offense and getting the ball down the field in the vertical passing game, it's not doing you any good. And just to touch on another point that you made about that cool, calm, collected Nick Foles.
Oh.
This is the moment I knew that the Rams were in trouble.
Ice in his veins.
The opening series for the Eagles, there was a great shot of Nick Foles just casually strolling to the line of scrimmage.
I think I know the exact shot you're talking about.
And just nothing. You just saw nothing. He looked like it's somebody's dad who's rolling up to a McDonald's counter at 3 o'clock in the afternoon when there's no line and just ordering his food.
Yep, calm.
Not getting too high, not getting too low, just nothing. And that's the way the Eagles, at the quarterback position, need to approach the rest of the year. One play at a time, one drive at a time, one game at a time. Because everything from here on in is practically playoffs, baby.
Yeah. And Nick Foles has had some big games in that stadium, whether it be last year against the Rams, this year against the Rams. He upset USC when he was playing for Arizona there. So, I mean, but no, he's super cool, man. Like, he's calm and collect. I talked about him. That's his whole thing is being present. Like not thinking about the next day, just thinking about the next play. And also thinking about, Zach Ertz. We talked about, I was talking about Carson Nature, spreading the wealth. Right. Everybody eats. Nick Foles did that. And it's a part of, like, when defenses start keying on your tendencies, that's when it's a wrap. I can go back to 2 years past with Richard Sherman talking about a quote about knowing that they're going to hit the seam with Zach Ertz, and they were waiting for Carson to make a mistake, and they picked him on that. And that was like 3 years ago when he was a rookie. So, I mean, spreading the wealth is where it's at, and, just getting everybody involved, and you can't key on anyone, and that's where we win.
All right, so let's get into it. Let's get into it because I don't want to delay it any longer. Let's get into the Foles versus Wentz debate, at least as the rest of the season is concerned. And Doug Peterson had some things to say about, in Monday's press conference about Nick Foles and Carson Wentz. Go ahead.
Have you made a decision on the quarterback situation yet?
I have.
And who is it?
It'll be Nick. Another week of rest for Carson will help him. And so made the decision to go forward with Nick.
Is there consideration of putting Carson on IR, or are you just going to...
We will not put Carson on IR, yeah.
You said you will not put Carson on IR. When we last talked to you, you said it would take maybe 3 months for this to heal. Does that mean that you've gotten good news since then? Has the time frame sped up? Did you see more doctors? Have you gotten more opinions?
Well, it's a couple of things. We've gotten a little more information, and two, this is probably why I don't like to put timetables or put players in boxes, and so things have changed just a little bit. So he'll be listed as week to week. We will not put him on IR, and obviously when he's healthy, he's our quarterback, and we'll go from there.
Now I can read into that one of two ways. The first way is that Doug's just trying to play mind game with the opposition once again, where he said 3 months, but he's going to be day to day or week to week. He's questionable, but it's a 3-month recovery. You can read it like that, where he's just playing mind games, or there's the opportunity here where the injury does not require surgery, therefore can finally heal on its own, and he's kind of been playing with this already. So when Carson is healthy enough that maybe he'll come back for the playoffs if the Eagles get there. So, Gail, I'm going to pose this question to you. Let's say Nick Foles wins out, and things work in our favor where the Minnesota Vikings lose a game or the Dallas Cowboys lose both of their remaining games. That's unlikely considering it's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the New York Giants, but that's neither here nor there. Let's say things work in our favor, and we go into the playoffs. Carson Wentz is healthy at this point. Just throwing out a hypothetical. Who are you putting in there for the postseason, Mr. Gail Saunders? Are you going with Foles or are you going with Wentz?
I mean, me personally, or me acting as Doug Peterson?
You personally.
I think if Wentz is, healthy, 100%, but he's not going to be 100% healthy. Obviously, watching Carson Wentz play this season, something's been off. I've seen it. I've seen it when the first time he got injured, when he got up. I was like, I knew something was wrong with him because I just knew something was off with Carson Wentz. I think you'd have to go with Nick Foles right now. He's 100% healthy. He's playing like he looks healthy. So, Nick Foles.
You roll with Nick Foles.
Carson Wentz is not.
That your final answer?
Carson Wentz is not going to be 100% healthy.
That's your final answer, Nick Foles?
Yeah.
Hollywood Hearn.
I got to be honest with you. I'm siding with Gail on this one. The way that I look at it is I've already been told that this Carson injury is going to take 3 months to recover. I understand that maybe he can be strong and tough it out, but ultimately how I look at this team and how I look at this season is Carson is my long-term guy. I don't want to risk further injury on him, and spine and brain injuries in particular I treat with extra precaution. Like a disc, if he's got a crack in his disc, that's something I take a lot more serious than, a hurt wrist or something like that. That could be something that's permanent damage. So I would roll for the safety aspect with Nick Foles.
He's the future. Yeah. He's the future.
Ultimately, no matter what happens, I think Nick Foles isn't on this team next year. I think Carson is.
But is Carson Wentz abstaining from sex? Because that back,
he waited till marriage, man. Let him do what he wants.
Hey, but I'm saying, boom boom in the boom room. Yeah, with that back, nah.
So Gail is going Nick Foles.
Nick Foles.
Hollywood Hearn is going Nick Foles. You traitor.
I'm not traitor.
Turncoat. Lion. Sons of. You know what? I'm going Nick Foles too. I'm going Nick Foles too. But I've got a couple different reasons as to why. Yes, Carson Wentz isn't fully 100%. But more so than all of that, we need a hard reset on Carson Wentz. I'll agree with both of you. Carson Wentz is the future. He's the franchise quarterback. And more than likely, Nick Foles is going to opt out and move on and have his opportunity to be the starter in some other town.
He'll get an opportunity.
And deserve the opportunity to do so. But Carson Wentz, both mentally and physically, we don't need to just hit the reset button. We need to pull the cord out of the machine. Because I'm not interested in seeing an 80% Carson Wentz like we've been seeing all season. Because it takes a full year to recover from a knee tear, let alone a double knee tear. And come to find out he's had back problems since, October?
Right.
And come to find out that it's developed into a fracture in his back. I'm not willing to risk the future of the franchise any further than it's already been risked. Secondly, You saw the offense and the team rally around Nick Foles like they did for last postseason. There's some postseason magic with Nick. I can't explain it. I don't know how he does it, but the proof's in the pudding. And the team is playing around him. You do not want to disrupt that kind of chemistry at this point. You don't want to, this is my third point, you don't want to manufacture a quarterback controversy. Let's say things go the way of the Eagles' favor and they win out and the Vikings, blah, 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 all the playoff scenarios. They make it in at the 6th seed. You mean to tell me you are then going to put Carson Wentz back into the game, back into the lineup, and expose him to the potential of manufacturing a quarterback controversy if he has to go to Chicago, if the playoff standings stay where they are right now, go to Chicago and get his butt whooped? Let's say that he pulls off a miracle and the Eagles beat Chicago in the wild card round. As the 6th seed, you are now playing the 1 seed who is coming off of that first round bye, one New Orleans Saints. So you mean to tell me once again you are going to put Carson Wentz in the position where he has to go back down to New Orleans and try to recover from that butt whooping they got earlier in the season after Nick Foles has looked so good? You are setting, by putting Carson Wentz into the playoffs, healthy enough to play, healthy enough, air quotes, to play or not, you are setting him up for failure. You are setting the team up for failure. Because going into the offseason, they're going to be looking back like, hey, Nicky Foles got the job done to get us into the playoffs, and then he went to Carson Wentz and he crapped the bed. Now you are sprinkling doubt within the locker room. You can't have that. The only other way you are going to manufacture that sort of quarterback controversy is if Nick Foles goes to the playoffs, wins 3 games, and then wins the Super Bowl, and now even me as a Carson Wentz supporter, yeah, he's a franchise, he's a future, all of a sudden now I'm even throwing my hands up going, what am I supposed to do now? You got Carson Wentz, the guy you drafted, the guy you traded up twice to go get, the guy you gave up all those assets to go get, the guy you groomed, the guy that was the MVP candidate last year, and then you got Nick Foles, who all he does is win Super Bowls. I mean, it's a great problem to have because you got 2 rings, you went back to back. But if you put Carson Wentz in the playoffs, if they should so make it, you are in essence manufacturing your own quarterback controversy and setting Carson up for failure and doubt within the locker room. I mean, and that's coming from a Carson Wentz supporter.
Yeah. I mean, before last week's show, I'm sitting in here with Trox. This is before you. What did I say to you? I said I would sit Carson because he doesn't look healthy. This is before anything broke. Because I'm saying, after they lost the Cap, I'm like, you sit him down, man. Rest him. Make sure he's healthy for next year. Because that's the future, and that's the way I look at Carson. I'm like, that's our baby right now. That's the franchise QB. Yeah. There's no need to put him in harm's way, and because he's young and dumb and full of fight, and the dude will put his body on the line for this team. He will. Like you saw that Panthers game where he tried to run over linebackers. He will put the Rams game from last year. He will try and throw a touchdown with a torn ACL because that's what Carson will do. So you have to take him out of harm's way because that's your franchise QB. And I think you made some good points, and I think it's you just don't want to put him in a bad situation.
We've taken 2 very hard, firm stances on this show collectively as a whole when it comes to the quarterback position. Number 1, we didn't want to see Nick Foles traded. Not last year, not for anything besides a first-round pick. Because at that point, we didn't know Carson Wentz's progression. Leading up in the preseason, let's look back and remember a little bit. We didn't know whether Carson was going to be gone 2 games, whether he was going to start the season, be gone 2 games, 4 games, 6 games. There was even talk about 8 games. We didn't know. So we needed Nick Foles there. And then, even when Carson comes back, if he gets injured again, now you have the best insurance policy in football on the sidelines. Look how it all came to fruition.
Yeah.
The second hard stance that we took regarding the quarterback position was this. It's Carson Wentz's team. When he's healthy, it's his team. And I still feel that way, 100%. But right now, and for the remainder of the 2018 season, however far along that takes us, where's my keys? Because we're giving it to Nick Foles. Nick Foles got the keys to the car, man. You can't doubt him anymore.
No.
You just can't doubt him.
He's proven himself.
Not after what he did last year, and certainly not after what he did against the Rams.